Hello, Angel Baney. Welcome to the Recovering Entrepreneur Show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you. I'm very excited for everyone to get to know a little more about you. So if you don't mind, can you introduce yourself? Maybe tell everybody who you are and where you're from and maybe something that you like to do for fun.
Yeah, so I live here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Lived here most of my life. Traveled, lived in Las Vegas for a while. Came back home. But this is where I reside with my husband, my 3 cats, and my daughter.
3 cats
and we love to just be outside, hiking, swimming, skiing. Skiing is coming up soon, so we're very excited about that.
Awesome. Yeah, I've always been too scared to do that. So now that we got the fun stuff out of the way, why don't you share with us a little bit about what you're doing for work and what you're doing in the entrepreneurial space? Well, that's a mouthful I got to get used to.
It's Black Friday.
Yeah.
What can you say, Rick? So for 20 some years, I was a body worker. And because of COVID, I decided to pivot because going back and doing massage was not going to be the way I wanted to do it. So for a few years now, I had been looking at how to just really get along with my daughter better, how to have those communication skills with her, because, there was no communication in my family as I was growing older. My mom was there up until like 6th grade, and then she went back to work, and we were pretty much on our own. So I wanted to make sure that if my daughter needed things, she knew she could come to me. And that's where I found this system that was scientifically proven, and I decided to become a coach. So I've been training for the past 3 months. I graduated, and now my goal is to use this with mothers and their children, but especially their daughters, to give them a voice against, any kind of bullying, emotional or physical abuse before it happens.
Wow, that's a great cause. Congratulations on graduating.
Thank you.
Who's your target audience? Like what age group? Is it teenagers?
No. So I'm actually working with preteens, moms with preteens, because I feel, and research has shown, that by the age of 8, most girls lose their self-confidence. They become less resilient because of all the messages in their head from either parents, peers. They start looking at boys sometimes. So, they start to see images in the media. So 8 is really where it begins. So if we can begin with these girls around 6.5, then we will really make them more resilient, more self-assured, and they go into their teenage years, hopefully with just that strong self.
Wow. I did not realize it happened that young. That is so super disturbing that they could pick up on the chaos of the outside world that young. Like, I get that brains are changing and all that good stuff when they're young, but I hate to hear that they're picking up the negative that early.
Yeah, and I think a lot does have to do with social media. But, I remember being in middle school, and it was awful. And a lot of girls say middle school was awful. But you know why it's so awful? Because it begins in like 3rd grade, where cliques start forming, right? And if you're not the type of person that says, well, I don't need to be in that clique. I can have friends here. I can have friends here. And if those groups aren't going to accept me, I'm okay with myself. And I know who I am. And they don't need to accept me. I need to accept them. So that's why I think it's just so important, because going into middle school, you want to have that emotional intelligence. You want to have those skills. Yeah.
So you're working with the moms or the children or both?
Well, first, I begin with the moms. because I think a lot of us moms, we have this plan as when we have our child and we think, I'm going to parent differently from my parents, right? And not to put our moms down, I had a great mother. She was very nurturing. She did everything for us. But she came with a habit and pattern of how she was parented, right? So we come from a big Italian family. And people say that we talk loud or we like to yell.
That's funny because I'm sitting here actually thinking how soft-spoken you are. I just turned my volume up. So that's pretty interesting. But I was married to an Italian, and my mom is one of 8 boys in the Sanangelo family. So I understand what you're saying.
Lots of vowels there.
Yeah.
So, and that was my thing when I was not going to do this, I was not going to do that with my daughter. But those patterns are embedded in us, right? And so when she would do something that triggered me, instead of going back to what I've learned from parenting books, right? Because you always go to the parenting books. I used my voice to yell, to kind of scare her, to just not make her feel good. And that's where this communication course came. And I thought, she's 6. I'm not going to stress her out. I'm not going to stress myself out. I need to learn a better way. And I needed to break the habit, the patterns, right? So that's what I think a lot of us parents need is we can read all the books, but we actually need someone to help us with those skills. And I'm all about the positive. I'm a very positive person. I see a lot of these parenting things as being more towards the negative, like, is your kid a spoiled brat? Is your kid this? Is your kid that? You know what? Kids are not in a box. They have a really dominant personality that we need to know about. And if we know that, then we can parent from a positive way instead of labeling our children, because that goes with you through life, right? You may not think it does, but it gets embedded. Everything we say to our children gets embedded deep in our tissue. And who knows when it's going to come out.
I've learned that from interviewing so many guests on my addiction show, and there is a common thread. And I'm talking everybody from people who've been suicidal to, professionals, and it all goes back to childhood. Like there's a theme of that, and it's really freaking scary to think. I guess I never thought that it could go back that far. So I love that you're on the front side of it. I've seen, there's a lady on TikTok of all places, and I've seen her recording, her and her daughter, who's probably about the same age, and they do affirmations together in front of the mirror. And
yes,
it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. Like I'm not a parent, right? So there's a little disconnect for me on how I would approach it. But my rule was, like you said, I decided I wasn't going to be a parent until I could do a better job, was kind of my strategy. No, and again, no offense to mom, grandma, the generations, but
right.
It was just, I was never prepared to be in a position to do a good job, in my opinion. So to see this new way of thinking, I really love that. I have a 16-year-old niece that is finding her voice now at 16. And it's got to be even that much harder because now she's already gone through the bullying and the bad situations that you get in school and from your peers. So I think your mission is just spectacularly important.